2022. I'm like, huh, okay. Let me give you a little of my background so that way y'all can filter whatever I tell you, because I have sleeves of and views of family systems, but I don't have all of those. So, but I wear kind of three hats in this space. First off, I am a sixth generation to a family system that still manages assets at a cousin's level. I was CFO to that family, helped build the family office. We didn't call it a family office. We'll get into that in a little bit, but it was basically just kind of a multi-generational management company for stuff, trusts, and mainly land. We were ranching, farming, and now in commercial development locally here. So was there 11, and then went through all the consulting that Sammy was talking about, and which is awesome, because that we were on an island back in the 90s, probably with a lot of other family systems that were trying to figure out how to transition from one generation to the other. You know, estate planning is kind of easy. You can do that. I don't want to say it's easy. There's a lot of thought in estate planning, transferring ownership, you know, and where we struggled with, and we struggle with that too, but where we really struggle is how do you transfer control? You know, who makes the decisions when you're going from, you know, a small group to a bigger group, which is typically what happens in generational shifts. So anyways, I've lived in that environment, and now just kind of really at a support at a board level. That's one hat. The second hat I wear is kind of, since doing that, I've done a lot of consulting. We helped a lot of farmers that were going through the same, you know, kind of transitions that we were going through. And it wasn't in like in a consulting agreement. We just kind of peer-to-peer, you know, like, you know, just what are y'all doing? What are you doing? Who are you talking to? How did y'all do this? There's a lot of that going on in the 90s. And at some point, somebody said you should start consulting and charging a fee for that. So I did. And that led to other families in different industries, from manufacturing to, you know, oil and gas and all that. So I've been doing that for 20 plus years with families, and usually they're family enterprises. I kind of stamp family enterprises that captures the family business side of it and the family office side of it. So, and I've been in both areas. And then my third hat is I'm a part of an accounting firm in Fort Worth, Texas. We have about 70 employees. When I say accounting, it's a pretty broad, you might think of tax, you know, but really we're back office services, and our core is family systems. My partner had a kind of a insight because he came out of some large family offices as CFO, and was kind of frustrated with the back office and all the spreadsheets and you know, the reports, and didn't know where cash was at any point in time. He's like, this stuff should be better. There should be better technology, should be better processes. And so he developed that where you can outsource that. So that it's really a kind of a complex bookkeeping firm. And we have about 6 billion under admin, a lot of it here in Texas. We also do funds, private equity funds, and families. Those are our two client bases. So given that, I kind of see a lot. I am not a tax guy. I'm not, you know, registered in any way. You know, so just take my view for what it's worth. So my one of my journeys along the way that I, you know, as we kind of talk about considerations for families, if you're coming into a liquidity event, or maybe you have an embedded family, you know, office in an operating company, we see a lot of those. It's how do you, you know, what do you? There's 31 flavors of ice cream, you know. When it comes, there's probably 131 flavors. I don't know, but there's a lot. And so I would say get with somebody that's independent, that's not, you know, like Sammy, you know, doesn't seem like, and I've met Sammy a couple times. He doesn't, somebody that's not, he's there to help you think about the big picture of what this looks like for you. Because once you start making decisions about hiring people or strategy, and it's kind of hard to undo that. And you're in control. You can, you know, if you've created the wealth, and you can create your family office the way you want to. So get some help with that. Because again, there's a lot of different ways, and I've seen a lot of different family offices, like a snowflake. So there's a little bit of that. Our story, just to help you all get some perspective on how we stumbled around in this area. We had land that was being developed, everything moving north here in Dallas. And farming, ranching turned into real estate development, turned into land sales and investments. And I grew up on the farm. And it was interesting. We had this phone, and Marty's heard me tell this story, the shop phone. We had this phone, had this buzzer out there in the shop. And that, rarely went off. The phone rarely rang out there. But over the years, it started really like buzzing. You'd have to run from, the other side of the farm to catch it, thinking, who's calling, and so it became, there was evident at some point we needed an office away from the farm, because the farm hands were answering phones from, phone calls from estate planning attorneys or developers or somebody needing to talk to my dad or who's, and it's like, man, we're really just farm hands out here. And so at some point they said, we need an office. We need to have a professional office. And then the entities and the trusts from prior generations were kind of in filing cabinets in various homes and stuff. So it's like, we need to get organized. So my dad's generation really pulled that together, brought some of us cousins in to help right out of college, and kind of designed that for, for what we call it a management company. But can you hear me? There we go. That's kind of our story. And today we're still going. We've had, we went through consulting on governance, and that was helpful, and succession planning. I would highly recommend you get some outside help to do that as a consideration for any generational transition and get in front of it. You don't want it to be driven by a health event or some event that needs, to happen tomorrow. You want to be thinking about that before. And there's a lot of data out there. I don't really know, exactly how, the data is formed, but it doesn't look good. If you don't plan for transition, it's probably this way in any business. It's not, your outcomes are limited. They're usually based on some event that you don't have a lot of control over. So in families, especially with kids, going first to second or second to third, and what'll happen is you get more corporate along the way. It's like we're a parliamentary procedure stage. We had a big meeting all day yesterday. It's quarterly, rotating board members, outside advisors, cousin consortium groups. So as your family systems get bigger, they go away from the dining room table, which is great that you're having those communications at the dining room table, to the boardroom. And I think that's just a natural evolution of a family, and a complex family with a lot more family members. That family, Fox defined a family office in its best form, provides a structure that helps preserve the family enterprise by supporting 4 dimensions of the family. These 4 dimensions are family or business legacy, kind of where the wealth started, financial legacy, the financial security and management, family legacy from the past and the future, and then the philanthropic legacy. So I don't know, to me, there's a lot more to this than what they define, but I guess you got to start somewhere with a definition. So trends, things that I've seen. Again, I probably have more of a Texas view because a lot of our clients are here and in West Texas. But I've seen more collaboration. I was telling Marty, I don't know if it was in Austin or something, there's just been a lot more peer-to-peer collaboration on ideas, where you have family systems like myself that aren't afraid to come to these conferences anymore. They're like, hey, I need information. I need to see people. They know how to, they don't want to be so much under radar anymore when they're looking for something. When they're not looking for something, you won't ever see these people, but if they're actively growing, I always say there's like this scale of families that are just preserving their wealth. They're just really just maintaining wealth. And then there's the other side of it where they're trying to double their wealth. They're really growing it, and you have everything in between. And so those strategies, if you're truly trying to grow it, you've got probably a CIO, you're in a lot more alternatives. and you're probably looking for something and needing to come to these conferences for that. If you're over here on the passive side, you probably don't see many of those family systems because they're not very active. So the collaboration's great. And there's a huge family office forum here in Dallas that is very well run. And it's San Antonio and Austin as well. And they have great topics, and they have great peer-to-peer, collaborations like you're doing, Marty. And I think there's other regions in the U.S. that have these. I'm sure New York has them and all that. So that I didn't really, when we were growing up trying to figure this out in the 90s, we didn't really see any of that. And so it's nice to see. So that's probably a trend. And I guess, I don't know if it's a consideration, but it's a trend. The advisors, saw Todd Healy here earlier. Todd's an insurance guy, but his perspective is a lot broader. And I think there's a lot of other advisors here that, okay, here's what I do, but my perspective is, a bigger perspective, help families, help my clients in these other areas, whether it's connect them. I mean, you're a great connector, Marty, and it's just, how do you connect people and help them, and good things come from that somehow. I don't know, but you see a lot more of that where it's not just the attorney, the CPA, the wealth manager, the silos. You see them kind of trying to collaborate a lot more to do that. There's a group out of Colorado, PPI. I don't know if you've heard of them, but it's a advisor collaboration group for family systems, and it's started by estate planning attorneys. So it's like, that's kind of cool. Okay, so let's see. Education is one thing that I think is great, and I think Fox I don't know if Fox started this, but it's now, and I don't know where Fox is anymore, but there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, just like where they are on the map, because they have a lot of competitors coming in now, and it's great because I think the more education you can give next generation heirs about stewardship and about even investments and stuff, because you have a lot of next gen, they're not finance people, they're not business people, but they still need to show up to a board meeting or understand what a balance sheet looks like. And so there's a lot of that out there, a lot more of it. And I didn't know about the one in Florida, but that is great. And that is a pretty good fee, because the one at, or that's a really low fee, because the one at Northwestern that John Ward had, I think it was 10 or 15,000, Yeah. And so they're probably well worth it, but yeah, I'm going to personally check out the one in Florida. But I think there's just a lot more approach and consideration towards the next generation, how to prepare them. And when you think of that old, proverb, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, which is way overused in our industry, I think that's changing. I think those statistics that are out there are changing. They have to be, Yeah. Yeah. We had a family that we knew that they weren't a client. They're just family office, helped them kind of think about family office design a little bit. And had, kind of an operating business, sold it right before 2008, put it all in the market with a broker. And of course it went, 40% down. I don't know what the actual, Greg, you might know, was it 40 if you were in the S&P, or was it more than that? Oh, 50. And this guy who was, just an operating business, he did really well in life. He went from knowing that to not knowing this and watching it in the elevator every day go down 10%, or, it just kept going. He finds that I can't sit here and watch this. And his advisor was over there going, it's okay. It's okay. He like, I just can't do this. And so he pulled out at the very bottom of it and didn't put back in. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. More educated outside of that system, and those systems protect the like their environment and the reporting that they give them too. And so yeah, I'm a big fan of the boutiques. I'll just because well, you have to do a little more work to find them and have relationships with them. And Greg Madledge with Catamounts here, and there's I saw Reef on the agenda, or some Mike Marcelli. These are good people, and they have specific, I call them Jerry Maguire kind of initiatives, like, hey, bigger's not always better. Let's find really unique things that we like, that have opportunities, and define those. And if it fits a family system, that's great. But they're not trying to broad, shotgun approach here. And so I'm a big fan of those. Just one, I see just where I sit. I think if I were just wearing the family office hat, I probably wouldn't know any of this stuff, but seeing the accounting side and our family systems and just all of them from passive to growth, I see these strategies and get to meet these great people. So technology trends. Well, let's stay on investments. Another thing that I've seen, I don't know, and Marty, I apologize, I haven't seen the whole conference in Dallas, but carbon credits. Have y'all bumped into that a little bit with ranches? Okay. Well, yeah, it's kind of the wild, wild west. Greg, have you bumped into that? Or have you looked? It's kind of we're seeing it with ranch properties. So if you have a $10,000 or $20,000 ranch or 20,000 acre ranch, typically they don't make much money. The cattle business is not great business to be in. So where else do you get money to kind of subsidize the ranch and to keep some, as these families are growing, you need to find some cash flow off this land or they're going to sell it. And I've seen of $1 million asset out here not creating any cash flow. And I've never been to the ranch, or I've only gone once, or I don't want to raise cattle. So there's value shift as generations grow. And so ranch properties, at least our clients have been kind of looking into this. And I don't know if any of them have pulled the trigger on it, but it's kind of an interesting where you're selling and there's brokers out there that'll negotiate this, I guess, for you, kind of like a landman in the oil and gas, I guess. And they will negotiate a price of your carbon credits if you meet the criteria, which you can't plow the land, and there's a certain amount of brush control you're allowed to do or not allowed to do. I don't know all the initiatives. Texas A&M has an article right now that I'm happy to share with anybody. It was in the their last real estate magazine. And so there's restrictions you can on your land that you can do, but they generate some pretty good carbon credit dollars, monthly checks, to the landowners for doing that. So your people like Microsoft, who are, whoever's using carbon, they want to be carbon neutral by a certain date. So they have to go buy these credits to offset the carbon they're producing. So it's something like that. And it's about as far as I know, but I've seen that pop up on our radar quite a bit in just general discussions. Oil and gas is an interesting play right now with the pricing, and some of our families are currently on the market with their stuff. We'll see if they get the pricing that they are hoping for with the history. And let's see, what else have I seen? So I'm not an investment guy, so y'all have got plenty of that top covered here, so I don't really go on. Those are just some of the things I've seen. technology trends, since we are, big into tech on the process side of our accounting, I can share some of the things we're seeing. There's fewer on-premise servers. So if you have an in-house staff, I think everything's kind of going to the cloud for the most part. I think that's old news. If you have an on-premise server, you probably ought to really look at getting an IT guy around and thinking about, we're in the 2020s now. So software's all gone to the SaaS models, which is good and bad. From a price standpoint, it's always more expensive. I've not really enjoyed that, but I do like they secure it, they update it, they do all that, so you don't have to, constantly mess with it or have an IT guy do that. So the APIs are a little harder to connect with some of this software, and that's the other thing about family systems. And there's just not somebody that has one system you can go to that aggregates all your investments, does all your bill pay, does all your, bank reconciliation and credit card categorization. And there are some that say they do that, and we've looked at them, and I will tell you that they do one of those things really well, but they don't do all of them. So what you're in large family offices are in, either a lot of spreadsheets, which we see that, a lot of spreadsheets. Or they're in a big ERP system that they're probably using 20% of that ERP system because it's very complex, so they're in there like, okay, well, I know it'll do all this, but I don't really know how, I don't know who to talk to about it. And the consultants, because we've hired a lot of consultants to help us through our tech, they have no idea what private wealth and family offices are or is, or, what their commercial operating business mentality. And so you have to educate them on that. So we really, there's a real opportunity for somebody to figure that out, because there's a lot of silos in technology. And with everything going to the SaaS models, those APIs where you connect through those ports aren't always work. And that's frustrating. And you have staff calling, it's not working, I can't get in, I can't, it's like, just want this to all work together. Robotic process automation is pretty fascinating. I think the Microsoft of that area is called UiPath. I don't know if any of y'all bumped into UiPath, but you ought to go to one of their conferences if you want to understand this technology, because it's fascinating and it's it's agnostic to any software. So it's where it's not an API, it's not AI in the form of it's within the software. This is basically a robotic workforce that you can give it credentials and logins, and you can train it to go to this place and grab that. And if this happens, you do this, just like you're training a process related employee. So we've got one of them in our office right now. We got 10 more that we're developing, and they're really it's a robotic workforce for process. No, just something to share. If you're a large family, you're a little small family, there's some Microsoft has a free tool or a Microsoft Office user, and it's called anyway, but they have a RPA solution, and I think Microsoft will come into this a little stronger. Right now, UiPath's the strong one, and so I think for small families that have a tech kind of background, they're probably already using some of these tools. Larger families, you can probably eliminate a lot of paper workflow, even paperless workflow, and have a bot do a lot of this stuff process wise. So anyway, I don't know if we're at the beginning of it or if we're late to the game, but it's new to us, and I could see having half of our workforce robotic. Yeah. So if you're interested in that, I would just go to a UiPath conference. It's in Vegas usually, so you can have some fun anyway. And just listen, sit in there, take your name tag off, that way, and just watch and learn some of this. It's fascinating how they're applying it. Right now, it's all in big companies. It's in Amazon and Uber, and that's where the big dollars for the consultants are. But it applies to little companies too. I mean, it's a fairly reasonable cost. So anyway, that's something I wanted to share. What other such time we? Okay. Yep. Right. Yeah. Well, and you got to put your filter up because I'm I'm a business process outsourcing guy. So, but I'll give you my perspective. You know, yeah, yeah. I think there is, again, there's 31 flavors. You need somebody that's going to be kind of walking beside you that's not influenced, I think, by a decision. And but yes, my personal opinion from seeing families, and we have New York clients, and we have clients in California and all over. The younger groups that are creating wealth are very open to outsourcing. They really don't want to manage staff and have an office, and they want to travel, and but they want really high, quality stuff. They want the reports, whatever those reports are, on their desk. If and some of them are like, I just, y'all pay my bills, you do everything, and we'll have an annual meeting or a quarterly meeting. So it depends. Again, there's all kinds of flavors, but it probably depends on where you created your wealth. If it was in tech, then they're probably probably an outsourced candidate. If it was an operating company and they had an embedded family office, their CFO was doing the guy's stuff, and they ended up doing the trust, and the estate planning came, and then the CFOs raises their hand, and go, you're taking time from my job over here managing all these trusts and stuff, and I don't know anything about investments. So that guy or gal, I think, is going to probably be an internal staff person. They're going to want I go to the office every day. I want Billy or Susie next to me. I would say in general, Marty, I would say outsource the process related stuff to as much, that you're comfortable with, and in-house the strategic stuff. If you're big enough to hire a CIO, great. But there are some fractional CIOs out there as well that will only work for 4, or so groups. And there are some, and Chris Dance is one in Dallas that just comes to mind. There are fractional CIOs that really, that will only work for your strategy and all that, just like they're in house. That's my general advice. But we see, it's fascinating. We see the 1980s office every now and then. We walk in and some key employee has retired 30 years. Nothing's changed in 30 years. And it's fascinating. There should be a reality TV show on this, because if you think about it, there's no competition. The officers aren't competing with each other, right? It's just they're managing family stuff. So their overhead and how they file stuff and paper and computers, typewriter at the front desk. I mean, it could be stuck in the 80s or the 70s, and I've seen that. And it's like, and it works. It's like their system worked, it's just they lost that key person that managed it all, and they don't really know how to hire somebody. So they start looking outside for help. And whether we help them or not, I get to see that kind of window into, there hasn't been a lot of change here in 30, 40 years, and there hasn't needed to be, because there's no competitive drive here to do that. And internal staff typically is disincentivized to change. There's job security issues. If you go get a robotic process, if they go that far, then it's like, well, what do I do? What does Billy or Susie do if I automate this? So there's a little bit of disincentive for change. And and I just, because we have a lot of accountants, they don't like change. The people, I don't think anybody really likes change too much. So there's that. That's the family office. I think I don't know. I think you outsource if you're under 100 million. That's a just general stamp. Mm-hmm. Yeah, And here's um, yeah, yeah. All right, is that better? Yeah. Recent COVID did this to us, and it's fascinating just from a laboratory HR perspective. Um, the people that had in-house family offices, people liked working at home, and they didn't want to come back to the office. And then when they made people come back to the office, even if it's 3 days a week, the headhunters start calling people, the other firms that are out or that are remote. And so one thing that I'm trying to tell the internal family offices here is like, the talent is moving to remote workforce. Y'all got to figure this out. And, requiring people to come into the office every day is, I don't know if, I think, of course, the workforce will tell you what that supply demand is, but everything that I've seen, the talent has worked towards, they're wanting hybrid and 100% even remote workforce. There was a study that Bank of America did that was at the end of 2021, so fairly recent. They said 88% of employees, respondents prefer to work from home over the office. So yeah, that we got to figure that out. And that's not just a family office thing. That's any process related thing. Is going that. Yeah. The good thing is it expands your talent pool from what 30 miles around your office to, I don't know, the world. Yeah, if you want, depending on the time zone and how that affects things. But yeah, it really opens up some windows, I think, if you can figure out how to manage them, trade them, monitor. So those are the hard ones. Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Hmm. Well, yeah, and you want it the best of the best, and that may not be in your hometown. So that's a great point. If you can if you can figure out how to work with them, that's the whole thing. And I always tell families it starts at the top. Whoever the patriarch is, or the guy or gal that's running this office, if they don't believe in it, probably isn't going to be supported. Yeah, so you have an investment family office that's really, hey, I need a CIO, and I think I call them benevolent dictatorships. It's like, hey, if you want in, siblings, if it's second generation, um, come on in. But here's how I'm going to run this ship, and if you don't want in, here's a formula to get out of it, or you don't have to come in the first place, So there's those kind of deals. There's the concierge, like for us, it's about purchasing power. It's purchasing power and convenience. So if you split this stuff up, if you have a lot of illiquids in a family system, that becomes hard to one, split up, and two, now these people with jobs and careers and other endeavors got to figure out, well, now I got to manage this stuff. When it'd have been nice if we kept it all together up here and hired a CFO or a COO to manage this. So you have the convenience, I think, I don't know if that's the true term for it, and then, which is more of a multi-generational family office. The founder's family, that's really just serving the founder, the first gen. Those usually look a little different. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. No, I just, yeah, I've done consulting, and when they're ready to create governance or the kids wanting to work inside a family enterprise, I've helped them think about that, as just an outside consultant, not an accounting, they don't have to be an accounting client. So I've done quite a bit of that over 20 years, but I don't know, you really just have to understand, you really need to ask a lot of questions before you can give those kind of opinions, because it depends on their culture, their values, and how they grew up, how they were parented, and what their goals are in life, individual, what are the common, so it's a little bit of a understanding, seek to understand before you open your mouth. And, but for the most part, yeah, people getting help in that is outside help is, I don't think it can hurt. There's no downside to that. They could throw the advice in the trash, you know. Okay, well, we didn't like that guy, you know. Well, yeah, yeah, we're not regulated by any, because we don't invest in money or we don't manage money. We're just keeping books, and we don't do a test work on the tax side. We have a little small. That's first. I mean, it's big size for us. We about 20 people in tax, but we just do tax returns. So we don't see the FINRA SEC side of it, you know, like others have to deal with. But it's interesting. Y'all were talking about the family offices being registered, and I remember when George, y'all were going. I mean, that was a big deal, and we had a lot of families, just family offices, that were like, "We got a what?" You know. So thank you for doing that. I did not realize you wrote a letter that possibly influenced them in some way. I knew you were very active in that, and but that's awesome, because that was scary. It was just, I think, just a misunderstanding more than anything. But and you know, when you talk about wealthy people, it's probably not it's a little bit of champagne problems, right? You know, it's like, oh, why would we help this group? You know, it's like, well, they're taxpayers and contributors to, whatever. I mean, so you have to sometimes educate them to understand what's best. So I don't, Marty, you have anything else that I may have not covered, or any opinions? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think the main, if I were to give advice to a family system, I would say just having a family meeting, from one generation to the other. You can start young at the table, the dinner table, and talk about what you're doing and what you're thinking about, and get their thoughts on it. Here's two questions you can always ask that you'll never go wrong with. What do you think about this? Or how do you feel about this? Those two questions to your kids, to your spouse, and then just let them talk. They may say, well, I don't even understand what you're talking about. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I can educate you. Then you can answer the question. And that process, that very informal process, I think leads into what Sammy was talking about, is helping generational, these families go through generation in a good place, not in a bad place. And you have to start there, in my opinion.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.